Yo, love me, sexy, and welcome to SLC Puck. Woo! I'm your host, Austin Facer. Thanks for joining me today for episode 81 of SLC Puck. The song you're listening to right now is Love Me Sexy by Jackie Moon from the hit movie by Will Ferrell, Semi-Pro. The reason why I'm playing this song is not just because it's a great song. It's a little unfamily friendly, let's just say that, but it's a great song. I'm playing this song because I happen to know this is the song they play in the Utah Hockey Club locker room after they win a big game, and that's exactly what they did today on Super Bowl Sunday, February 9th. Thanks again for joining me for another exciting episode of SLC Puck. It's the last episode of SLC Puck before the Four Nations face-off. The NHL is going to take a little bit of a break here. This would have been the All-Star break. They're doing a international tournament in lieu of that. So 4 teams, the United States, Canada, Finland, Sweden, all playing in a little tournament in Boston and Montreal over the next week or so. So this is a big game. The game the Utah Hockey Club just played against the Washington Capitals on the road. Caps off, you get that? Capitals, they play caps off. You get it. Caps off a big 3-game road trip in which the Utah Hockey Club won a thriller in overtime against Columbus. Had a dud of a game yesterday against the Carolina Hurricanes, and then had another triumphant victory over the Washington Capitals today. Both those wins come in bonus hockey time, in overtime against the Blue Jackets, and then in a shootout today against the Capitals. So very, very exciting. Let's just go over the road trip really quick, and then we'll jump into some other stuff too. But hey, before we do that, let me just, again, shamelessly promote my stuff here at slcpuck.shop. Some great merch there. I got some hats, beanies, t-shirts. Working on a new design as well that I think you're going to like. I teased that on my social media, on Twitter or X, whatever you call it. And you can find me on all the social media platforms at SLC Puck. Greatly appreciate the follow on that. And I also greatly appreciate the support we've gotten from our first sponsor, Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelry. We're doing a fun giveaway for that. I'll have more information in an ad that I'll play here in just a second. But this QR code is how you get in a drawing for a $250 gift card. So scan it now. Get your phone out and scan this bad girl right now, and you'll be in the drawing. We've already had 2 winners already. But if you haven't won yet, you're still in the running. So definitely scan to win right now, and got more information on that at slcpuck.com. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. This road trip, the last road trip before the Four Nations face-off break. And that was since we last spoke. They played all 3 games this road trip. Very, very, very critical time for the Utah Hockey Club. I suspected this might be the most crucial weekend of the season so far, considering they're going into a little bit of an extended break. And there's the Utah Hockey Club very much on the bubble. If they will they, won't they, make a real push for the playoffs? Are they going to be buyers and sellers at the trade deadline, right? All these questions sort of gathered themselves and created a lot of intrigue for this weekend. What's up, guys? Hey, just wanted to interrupt this episode really quick to give you an update on our exciting partnership with Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelry. We've been giving away a $250 gift card for every episode in February. We have our first 2 winners. Super, super excited to announce that Connor P. and Gary S. have won $250 gift cards each. They've been contacted. They're thrilled. They're excited. And probably their significant other is pretty excited about this as well. I'm guessing. This is the kind of deal, especially around Valentine's Day, that might get you out of the penalty box, so to speak. So really, really, really happy to have the support of Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelry. Big supporters of the show. We really appreciate them. If you haven't entered the raffle yet, do so now, because even if you haven't won, you're still in the running. You should enter. You can enter on multiple devices if you want. It's really easy. Again, all you got to do is scan this QR code here in the corner. I've got it up in the other corner during the episode. That's if you're listening to this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, just go to the link in the description. You can enter the raffle that way. But super, super easy to get in the runnings for a great giveaway from the guys there at Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers and Jonathan's Jewelry. And what's best, you don't even have to win to take advantage of their support of SLC Puck. You go into either one of their locations, Cottonwood Heights, Trolley Square, just mention SLC Puck. They'll knock $100 off of any purchase. So super, super cool. We really, really, really love the guys over there at both of those locations. So go ahead and check them out. Get in the running now. You're still in it if you haven't won yet. We'll have more giveaways in February and probably beyond. So stay tuned for that. Really, really appreciate the support. They've got some great stuff over there at Payne Anthony Creative Jewelers too, and Jonathan's Jewelry. 2 locations. They do awesome stuff there. So go ahead and check them out. Grab some ice, so to speak, and get in this drawing if you haven't already, for heaven's sake, all right? Just do it. Just freaking do it, all right? Now let's get back to the show right now. And boy, it was pretty exciting. I'll say that we started off with this might sound familiar from what we talked about in our last episode, an overtime winner by Dylan Guenther, right? He had a thrilling overtime winner against the Flyers in Salt Lake last week. The next game did the same thing. He won the game for the Utah Hockey Club in overtime. A different looking goal, got his own rebound and put it in Columbus to get the winner. Super thrilling, though. And as I said in the last episode, Dylan Guenther's the dude. He's that guy. He's going to be him. That's the thing all the kids say. He's going to be that guy for the Utah Hockey Club for years to come. He signed that 8-year contract extension in the summer. He's a player. He's the dude. And the Utah Hockey Club looks a lot different when he's on the ice. He adds a certain moxie to the team, a certain level of confidence. But that I'll say this, he was not very much a part of what happened in Carolina the day after that. Not the day after that, but on Saturday. That was a tough one. It was a football score that the Utah Hockey Club was on the wrong side of, and we're talking to you guys on Super Bowl Sunday. So, fun to be talking about football, by the way. And let me just say this, I'm going for the Eagles today because I'm tired of the Chiefs. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of Taylor Swift. I'm tired of Travis Kelce. I'm tired of Patrick Mahomes. I'm a Shane Gillis guy. I'm rooting for the Eagles with him and Bradley Cooper and whoever else is an Eagle fan. Count me in that group this weekend, okay? Fly, Eagles, fly. I'll just say that. But the other football score from this weekend, the 7-3 loss for the Utah Hockey Club to the Carolina Hurricanes, super, super ugly. Tons of mistakes, tons of turnovers, mental lapses. Important to note, Carolina is a really great team. They're going to be one of the contenders in the Eastern Conference. They made a big trade for Mikko Rantanen from the Colorado Avalanche not too long ago. So looks like, and they also picked up Taylor Hall, a guy who I thought was going to be someone that a contender would pick up at the trade deadline as well. They got him. So look out for the Carolina Hurricanes to make some damage in the postseason. So, but man, that was an ugly one on Saturday. That was one of those where you just throw the tape out. You're like, all right, we got to turn the page on this one. There's not a lot to take away out of this other than the fact that we played very poorly. And one of those guys who played particularly not great in that one was Karel Vejmelka. He let in 6 goals. Carolina's 7th goal was an empty netter, but really kind of a disappointing night for Vejmelka, especially when you're considering his coming out party earlier this season was against Carolina. That was a game where he came in, had 49 saves, played his booty off. The rest of the team had an incredible performance in that game as well. They killed like an 8-minute long penalty in the third period to beat Carolina 4-1. That was way back in November, I believe, October of this season. So I'm sure Vejmelka kind of had that circled on his calendar. Maybe the Hurricanes probably did as well. They were like, oh, this is the dude who clowned on us in Salt Lake City. We're gonna take him to task. They did. They sure did. They put up a touchdown and an extra point on Vejmelka. It kind of gave me a lot of reasons to be concerned about today's game. And it made me feel like the game against the Capitals was what I like to call a scheduled loss. And that's where the schedule makers do you no favors in, how games are put on the calendar. I thought, okay, they played in Carolina the night before. Maybe not the night, but the afternoon before. They're going to have to get on a plane, fly up to DC. I looked it up. It's about an hour and 15 minutes on the plane. And getting on a plane sucks anyway. You know, they have to go through like a little bit of a TSA process to do that. Probably a little bit different on the charter, but they've got to recover from this game. A very physical game against Carolina. They're a tough, bruising team coached by Rod Brindamore, right? So that's a tough opponent. And they got to be ready to get on the ice and play the best team in the Eastern Conference, the Washington Capitals, with Alexander Ovechkin, with Tom Wilson, with Logan Thompson in goal. They've got to be ready to go against these guys in like 20 hours. Tough task. I was like, all right, so the Carolina game, that was Utah's chance to steal a game over the weekend. They missed it. I expect the game against Washington to be a little bit of a bloodbath for Utah. Was not the case. I don't know what it was. I don't know if they got like a little extra zip in their Dunkin' Donuts, you know, because they're on the East Coast or something, but the Utah Hockey Club came out with a vengeance to start this game. They scored 2 goals within the first like 2 or 3 minutes. Washington responded. You know, they punched back blow for blow all game long. They sent it into overtime. Washington scored with about 90 seconds to go to make the score 4-4 on a goal by Tom Wilson, his second goal of the game. A lot of familiar faces in the score sheet for this one. So Tom Wilson, you'll remember him. He's Washington's enforcer guy. He's the guy who fought Jack McBain when the Capitals were here in Utah after McBain had that hit on Alexander Ovechkin that knocked him out for a few weeks. Tom Wilson was the guy who said, hey, guess what, dude? You're going to pay for that. And Boehner earned his respect by, you know, answering the bell, so to speak, against Wilson. But Wilson played a great game again today, scored 2 goals. Ovechkin was on the score sheet quite a bit. He scored 2 against Utah back in November, or it might have been December, but anyway, earlier in the year. But he did not find the back of the net tonight, but had like, I think 3 assists in this one. So he scored a playmaker. So they dealt with the full brunt of Washington's ire, and to the Utah Hockey Club's credit, again, they went blow for blow on this one. They responded really, really well and won the game in a shootout. The first ever win for the Utah Hockey Club in a shootout. The heroics coming from 2 guys. Nick Schmaltzy scores the game winner in shootout. Nick is a good friend of mine, good friend of the show. I painted big Nick energy on my chest. Didn't have time to do it before this show because I wanted to get this done before the Puppy Bowl, which I know is on everybody's list on Super Bowl Sunday. But Schmaltzy scored the 1 goal in the shootout. Karel Vejmelka, again, this is his redemption game. He comes in and blocks all 3 shots in the shootout to secure the win for the Utah Hockey Club. And what a bounce back performance by Vejmelka. I'll just say that. So he gave up 6 goals yesterday to the Carolina Hurricanes. Yikes, woof, so to speak. Not very good. But then comes into this game and comes in cold too. It's kind of an interesting situation. I don't know if you caught this one. I'm sure you did if you watched the game. There's no way to miss this. Starting goaltender in this one was Connor Ingram. Doing okay, right? He let in a couple goals in the first period, right? After Utah had scored 2, Washington tied it up as well. He takes a slap shot from Alexander Ovechkin off the dome, right in the face, knocks the buckles off of his helmet. He takes his helmet off. He's talking with the trainer. He's clearly a little dazed. He's out of it. Leaves the game. Maybe a concussion. I don't know. Some kind of injury, right? I can't imagine it's a lot of fun to take a slap shot from Alexander Ovechkin to the face. He leaves the game. Vejmelka comes in cold but cool as ice in his veins. It was interesting to watch him on the bench. You know, the trainers, you know, dealing with Ingram, you know, probably checking his eyes, you know, just seeing like what his availability for the rest of the game is. He's ruled out right then. Vejmelka knows he's coming in, and he's just totally emotionless, totally expressionless, just calmly puts on his blocker, his glove, his helmet, gets in. I think he had the option to take a warm-up. I'm not sure if he did. That wasn't shown on the broadcast. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But he just comes in the game and rips it up. He blocks 30 of 32 shots, all 3 in the shootout. Tremendous bounce back performance by Vejmelka. And what I've heard about him, and I think this is where he's probably made a lot of great strides, is that at times he can have a little bit of, I guess mental toughness in some ways has been a concern for him at times. But I don't think there's a better example of showing a tremendous mental fortitude than his performance today. Again, he's less than 24 hours off of a terrible performance. He gets thrust into action cold and has a really, really, really fantastic performance. Huge part of Utah's win today. So I would say if I had a game ball on me, and I don't right now, I've got a woolly mammoth here. I'm going to give the game mammoth to Karel Vejmelka. By the way, I'm team Tusks up right now. I think this could be a cool, fun thing that we could do as a fan base of the Utah Hockey Club, because not only do they become mammoth tusks, do you see what this shape this creates as well? It's a U. So when you see people doing this next season when they skate as the Utah Mammoth, which I think is becoming more and more of a realistic possibility, just remember you heard this here first on SLC Puck. All right, I did the Tusks up thing first. Okay, I'm taking credit for this one, and you know who I think should be taking credit for a lot of the Utah Hockey Club's performance as of late is Bill Guerin. He's the general manager of the Minnesota Wild. He's also the general manager of Team USA, and he's the one who elected to not put Clayton Keller on the roster for the Four Nations face-off. And Keller's been unbelievable since then. He scored a goal against the Carolina Hurricanes, one of the few, highlights of the game, stole the puck in the defensive zone, came all the way down essentially on a breakaway and had a nice little deke on the goaltender there for Carolina to score. But Keller's been really good. And it feels like there's been a correlation in his performance from his snub on the Team USA roster to where he's been at now. He's been on an absolute tear. He's scored more than a point per game. He's been a tremendous leader. He's in a new role for the first time too. It's his first year as a captain. I think he's done a really tremendous job in that. But I think it's definitely been very clear he felt slighted about the Four Nations face-off snub. But let's just talk about that for a little bit. So the puck's gonna drop on that this week. It starts February 12th in Montreal, and again, as I said, it's a 4-team tournament between Sweden, Finland, Canada, the United States. Each roster is totally, absolutely stacked. You look at these rosters, and it's sort of hard to know who to take off and who to replace with Clayton Keller. That's just how good the United States roster is. Keller's from Missouri, by the way, so he would be representing the United States. But just look at this roster here. It's going to be like a fun week of great hockey. It's going to be on ESPN, TNT. I get the feeling, this is what people are saying, this might be the best roster of American talent ever put together. So again, that just underscores how difficult it was for a guy like Clayton Keller to make the cut. But again, I think that slight has added a chip on his shoulder that I think has been very useful for the Utah Hockey Club lately. But again, it tips off. What is this, a basketball podcast, for crying out loud? The puck drops on this week on the 12th. And again, let's just look at the roster here. Like Team Canada's got quite the group. Sam Bennett, the Florida Panthers, Sidney Crosby, Brad Marchand, Mitch Marner, Connor McDavid, Braden Point, Sam Reinhart, Mark Stone on the forward group, defenseman Drew Doughty, Cale Makar, who's one of my favorite players in the National Hockey League, Josh Morrissey, goaltending. They say that might be the weak point, but hey, still there's some big names there in the crease for Canada. Jordan Bennington, who is a crazy person, Aiden Hill, the Golden Knights. Moving along to Finland, just some highlights from the rosters. Sebastian Aho, who had a great game against Utah the other day. Roope Hines, Patrick Laine. And look here, we're in Finland. 2 members of the Utah Hockey Club on this roster. Olli Mata, and Juuso Välimäki will be representing Finland in this one. Sweden, by the way, those are the 2 representatives for the Utah Hockey Club in this tournament, by the way. No one else on any of the other rosters, but we'll just go through it. Continuing on, Sweden's group, highlighted by guys like Adrian Kempe, Leo Carlson, Elias Pettersson, defenseman Rasmus Dahlin of the Sabres, Victor Hedman, Erik Karlsson. A lot of really strong group here. But again, the United States roster, and people are saying these guys might be the favorites in this tournament, could be the greatest assembly of American talent ever put together. Matt Boldy, Minnesota Wild, Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, Dylan Larkin, Austin Matthews, who spells his name wrong, the Kachuk brothers, Brady and Matthew, defenseman Brock Faber, Adam Fox, Charlie McAvoy, Quinn Hughes, goaltenders, Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger, Jeremy Swayman. Really, really, really strong group. It's going to be a really fun tournament to tune into and watch. So again, this is a break from the typical, all-star weekend experience that the NHL puts on. A really, really, really fun tournament. And I said this in the last episode, and I think it's something that a lot of hockey pundits are saying, is that this could essentially be like the first trade deadline of the season. There is obviously a real trade deadline in March, but the feeling is this is going to be a time for team brasses to come together to talk about how they want to approach the second half of the season. Are we buying? Are we selling? Are we in the mix? Are we not? Do we need to add guys? Do we need to ship guys out and gear up for next season? I think this weekend, the way the Utah Hockey Club played, gathering 4 out of a possible 6 points on this road trip, was really crucial in tipping the scales one way or the other. And I think we can kind of count the Utah Hockey Club as a potential sneaky buyer to acquire some assets that could help this team make a playoff push in the second half of the season. Let's hop over to the standings right now. And if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, I would recommend switching to YouTube. That's where you'll be able to see what I'm looking at. Again, I just do this. I'm not sure if this is everybody's first venture into SLC Puck or the NHL, so I'll just explain really quick. NHL playoffs, 2 conferences, 2 divisions in each conference. Top 3 teams in each division are in, plus 2 wildcard teams. Right now, the Utah Hockey Club finds itself 2 slots out of the wildcard position. They've got 57 points in the standings. Remember, wins are worth 2 points. Overtime losses are worth 1. Losses in regulation are worth zilch. So that's where Utah Hockey Club finds itself with a 24, 23, and 9 record, 57 points. The 2 teams in the wild card slots right now, the Avalanche and the Canucks. Avalanche have 68 points, it looks like. Canucks with 63. So it's that second spot in the wild card that we got to take a really close look at. Right now, the Utah Hockey Club 6 points behind. But again, this is crucial. The 4 points they secured this weekend were really, really essential in keeping them in the mix. Because I was a little afraid. I'll be honest. I know like a hallmark of this show is our relentless, almost annoying optimism that we showcase from time to time here at SLC Puck. However, I was skeptical about, just how difficult this weekend was going to be playing Columbus, a team that's on the bubble as well in the Eastern Conference. They're just a point out of the wild card in that conference. But also playing against Carolina and Washington on a back-to-back. I was like, gosh, there's a real chance they could lose all 3 of these. They didn't. They won 2 of these. And had they not won these 2 games and secured those 4 points, they would have sat at 53 and been passed by the Anaheim Ducks and essentially been out of the wild card race. So this was a huge weekend. They're still in the mix. There is a really tremendous chance the Utah Hockey Club could make a big playoff push in their first season. And I would expect them to, especially with how much this ownership group wants to make a splash in its first season. Having a few playoff games in the Delta Center would be incredible for the future trajectory of this fanhood. And I mean, there's so much interest already here locally in the team. I think getting, the Utah Hockey Club in the playoffs, getting everybody in the same colored shirts again, just like we did for opening night against Chicago, getting the towels out, that would be it'd be the hottest ticket in town for sure. And I would try to be there for sure. I'd either get a credential or I'd put a credit card, I'd open and put a credit card down to be in the building. I'd find a way to get in, damn it. But it would be an unbelievable atmosphere. And it feels like it's still possible. So when you wonder about the moves that the Utah Hockey Club could make, do they need to add some more depth at forward? A guy who's like a really, really solid number 2 centerman who can sort of bulwark, is that a word? Who can sort of, bridge the gap between now and the time that they get Logan Cooley back. I think that's something that will be strongly talked about and even considered. So again, my theory on this, and Four Nations Face-Off is going to be a lot of fun. I recommend tuning into that. But keep an eye on what happens in the news in the hockey world between now and the Utah Hockey Club's next game, which I believe is on the 22nd against the Los Angeles Kings. And then after that, they're back at Delta Center on the 23rd against the Vancouver Canucks. And I'll just add this as a little plug. I believe we're doing Nashcast after that for the Chicago game on the 25th, and then possibly for the Minnesota game on the 27th. By the way, that Canucks game on the 23rd is huge. Super, super important. But I think there's a real possibility that by the time the Utah Hockey Club steps on the ice at Delta Center for that game, they might have a slightly different group. Maybe one or two different pieces plugged in to try to help them win games, pick up critical points, because they're going to need them. There's a few really, really critical games on the roster all the way through, right? So that game against Vancouver on the 23rd is a huge one. The one against Minnesota on February 27th is big. That's a division opponent. Games against Anaheim are increasing in importance. They play the Canucks again on March, looks like 16th. And then continuing on against Calgary on April Fools on the 1st of April. That's a huge game. More big games coming. And then that last game against St. Louis on April 15th. That's another one you got to circle. So these are big, big games coming up for the Utah Hockey Club. Games they need to find ways to win, and games they need to find ways to put the best 20 guys on the ice and give them a real chance to make a playoff push. It's going to be really, really exciting to see in this first year of the Utah Hockey Club, right? And that's what we've known them as, the Utah Hockey Club. And we're going to have a lot more exciting years in years to come. You know, maybe they'll skate as the Utah Mammoth next season, perhaps the Outlaws, perhaps another year as the Utah Hockey Club with the mythical snow creature logo. I know that's also been a big storyline, right? So there's two huge storylines: the playoff push. What the heck's the frickin' name, right? Those are the two things that I think are on most people's minds. And I want to open this up to the SLC Puck hotline. Again, you guys are more than welcome to call in and give your hot and spicy takes at 919-666-PUCK Puck 7825. So go ahead and you can leave me a voicemail. I check that pretty regularly to see what people are saying, see what we should talk about on the show. But I thought there was a really great question about one of these storylines that we've seen going on, primarily with the name situation. So I'm going to play this call from one of our great callers and address their question. And again, this is kind of the fun of the SLC Puck hotline. So let's tune in and hear what this caller had to say.
Hi, I'm just wondering if you know of any other team that has allowed their fans and community to have so much input in the selection of the team name and logo and so forth. Thank you. Bye.
Love that. Great question there. I appreciate that. So the question was, if I'm aware of any other teams in, I guess, maybe hockey or other sports where the fan base has had so much input and so much involvement in the team name, the logos, all that kind of stuff, right? Because I think that's something that's been pitched to us as part of this process. Is I think the word unique and different has been used from time to time. And I would just say that that's probably not true. I would say like this process of picking a team name and letting the fans be involved is something that has been done before. And we've seen it in like a lot of the other sports leagues. I would say it's probably very new to the Utah market, but there are some noteworthy examples over the years. I think some of these are pretty recent. The Seattle Kraken were a team that name was selected with very heavy involvement from the community. The story goes that I've heard with the Seattle Kraken is, they had a lot of options that fans were voting on and weighing in on and giving their, opinions on. But Kraken sort of became like one of the favorites as that process evolved. And then I think like the story goes, someone like taped a sign to the outside of Key Arena, which is now Climate Pledge Arena, up in Seattle, that said like release the Kraken. Picture of that went viral. People up in Seattle went nuts, and that essentially sealed the deal, and that became the team name for the Seattle Kraken. Fact check me on that if you don't mind. But that was a story I've heard, and it's such a great name for Seattle too. It's different, it's unique, it's mythical, it's fierce. It sort of encapsulates the maritime sort of vibes that are up in Seattle. And by the way, I love the Seattle Kraken's logo and everything they do with their look, and they do a great show for their fans as well. I've really hoped that the Utah Hockey Club can put something similar like that, perhaps with Mammoths, But again, more examples of teams that have had community involvement include the Columbus Blue Jackets. The fans are very involved with that. That paid homage to Ohio's Civil War history, so that was something people got behind a lot. Another good example, the Toronto Raptors, which came into the NBA in 1995. And if you're a film buff, you know that the smash hit, the #1 movie of all time at the time, Jurassic Park, had just come out a couple years before. So dinosaurs were very much in the cultural zeitgeist at the time. So I think that was why that one got over the hump. Other ones that were considered up in Toronto were like the Huskies, Bobcats, Charlotte Bobcats, by the way. That's what they used to be called before they were the Hornets for the second time. But that was another name that was involved, that involved the community a lot. I would imagine we'll see more of this in the future. But yeah, so I guess my point is, like, this is not terribly unique, I guess, in the sports world. I think this has been seen from time to time. I've heard that the Anaheim Ducks also did a very similar thing. Obviously, they were the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim because they were owned by the Disney company, and they took that from the movie that I love and enjoy with Charlie Conway and Adam Banks and Goldberg and the fellas. I think that name was kind of always in play for that team. But, I've heard that, after they had chosen the name, they were in the process of designing it, that they sort of let fans do a walkthrough of like different options. Like they had like poster boards with logos, color swatches, all that kind of stuff. And again, they invited fans to come in and see those and take those out. So again, I would say it is fun. It is an exciting moment for fans here to feel like they have a say in this. I would say it's not like new or groundbreaking here, but I think the salesmanship on it has been sort of what's been selling it for people. So it's exciting to see. And again, I have sort of pivoted on this. I was Team Outlaws for so long, but I think I've been won over in some big ways. And I've seen the people in the Utah Hockey Club fan base really embrace this, the Mammoth thing, in a big way. I've seen a lot of creative stuff come out of this. I want to highlight some work that one of our listeners does. His name's Nick. He's a tattoo artist based here in Salt Lake. And he's a really creative guy. He did a really cool Utah Yeti mock-up, did a whole jersey and everything. And I saw Nick walking around at Utah Hockey Club's games all the time with his Yeti jersey. And people were always stopping him to ask, dude, where'd you get that? This is one he had made. He's a very talented guy. He put together this awesome mock-up of what a Utah Mammoth logo might look like. Again, it kind of combines elements from the mythical snow creature logo with the mammoth look that we saw as well, and he elongated the tusks here. I think if this ended up being the look for the Utah Hockey Club, I think a lot of people would be really happy with this. And again, there's a lot of great tributes to Utah in the mammoth name. There's a full-scale mammoth replica in Fairfield or Fairview, one of those rural towns that Governor Cox is from. I think it's Fairview. It's Fairview. Thank you, Fairview. And so, I would be totally cool with this. I think there's some prehistoric vibes that would be very much appreciated as well. I've made the pivot. I'm saying tusks up. But remember, it was me. I came up with this, all right? Just remember that, okay? I'm taking full credit for that. But let's give credit to the Utah Hockey Club for a great weekend. Super, super, super exciting that they're back in the mix. They're remaining in the playoff hunt with some big wins. So thank you for tuning in. We're going to continue the show through the Four Nations face-off break. We'll have more stuff to talk about. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe here on YouTube or Apple or Spotify. Follow me on social media at SLC Puck, and check out the shop, for crying out loud, at slcpuck.shop. I'll have another design there soon, so check that out. And thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll talk soon.